Okay, Chris, we're going to get started today on getting your Panda sorted out. All right, so a couple things to do, just to review. We're going to go ahead and service your movement, of course. We're going to basically leave your dial alone. I may do a little bit of cleanup on your Seiko, and some of your indices could do for a little cleanup on the polished sides. We're going to relume your hands and repaint your hour and minute hand on the center hands. Everything else, we're going to basically just do a good cleanup, replace your crystal, and do a service. So let's go ahead and get that started. All right. So let's get off. Let's get your dial and hands taken off. Have a look at those. Come on. Sometimes these. There we go. Yep. Thought I had it. Come now, come now. All right, let's try that one more time. Let's do that again. Well, that's just the way things go sometimes. These 6-1-3/8 can oftentimes. All right, well, we'll make do. In fact, let's go ahead and do some disassembly while we're in here. Okay, well that screw needs to be looked at. They put the wrong head, wrong size screw there. Okay, get your winding components off. Let's go ahead and that's always tough. That makes it a bit tough. Come on. There we go. Hopefully that will do it. Just gets itself into a weird state sometimes where, there we go. The lever gets pushed in a weird way. But we got it. No problem. Okay. Let's protect your dial. And a little double protection for your hands. There we go. All right, we'll start restoring those. All right, so next we're going to take off your, what are really nice looking sub hands. There we go. Okay, those should just fall away. Perfect. All right. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's go ahead and take your dial off and have a look underneath to see if it is, in fact, the one that came with the watch. It should be roughly a month or two, some side of the, to one side of the case back. So this has a 7, perhaps a 7.2? I'm not sure, it's a little blurry. Let's look at the back, 7.4. That seems about right. Okay, well that's good to see. All right, there it is. Got some interesting material on the underside here. I don't think that's coming off. All right, well, all right. Let's get you torn down completely. Let's see how we look. Okay, Chris, well, let's get you going. Alright, let's take the power out of your mainspring. You can see you got a slight bend in your stem. Shouldn't be a problem though. Okay, so now we get down to the chronograph. Sorry for the snoring in the background. Of course, Martha and George are here to snore for your entertainment. Oops, wow. Be careful. Oh my. Alright, everything's fine. Everything is fine. There's your intermediary wheel. What goes here? Okay. Ooh, big hair. Not what we want to see. Hairs are not welcome to the party. Alright, so a little haziness, a little bit of rust. This spring is interesting. That should... It's alright. Hopefully no problem. You go here. Okay. Let's go ahead. Open up your levers. There's your hammer. Get to bath. Alright. A little loose. Nothing too bad, but a bit loose. Your jewels here. Okay. Take off your column wheel. Good. This also has a bushing. Needs to function. All right. Now, take off your ratchet wheel and your click. Okay. Very loose. Ooh, that screw is loose. Loose, loose, loose. Also loose. A little bit tighter, but still loose. Okay, Chris. Well, I have to apologize that my phone ran out of space when I was recording, and I wasn't able to record the rest of your breakdown video of your watch. But rest assured, it's all taken apart. Here are all the pieces. I'm ready to go back together. They've been through the cleaner, done some initial checks. One thing that I did have to do in the process of inspecting all your parts is that your mainspring is not very good shape. So usually this part, which is called the bridle, this has a slightly tighter curve if it's in as factory condition, and also you have some non-flatness, I would say, this coiling here of your inner. That all leads to power loss, and power loss is not what we want. We want as much sort of activity as we can get out of this mainspring. So I have replaced it. You have a new mainspring now. So that one will come back to you. We're going to get started with the process of reconstruction. Unfortunately, we missed out on deconstruction a bit, but that's okay. This is the more exciting part, I think. Anyway, so let's get our stuff together, and we can start with getting you back together. Okay, so the way this works is we're going to lubricate, and lubrication here is now only for the center wheel jewel. I'll put your center wheel in, and then we're going to construct your the components that operate the levers that make your our recording wheel work for your chronograph. And then once we do that, we can build out the rest of your train. All right. So there's that part. That's your center wheel. We lubricate the top of that. Usually what I would do would be to build out the train of wheels and actually only put a very few number of pieces together on the calendar side. But because we are working with a 6138, we kind of have to work a slightly different way of doing things. And the reason in my mind that I do this is to ensure that what usually here is the barrel arbor port is now just a big gaping hole, because your plate that holds down your all the components of our recording wheel reset and our recording wheel function and some other parts, there's a jewel in that centers your mainspring barrel, and so as a consequence, that has to be in place in order to build out the train of wheels. If not, it's just kind of floating around and not doing anything. So that goes first. This part has to be in place so we can put your cannon pinion on. So it's just like a series of puzzle parts that have to go back together, and there is an order of things that makes the process much more straightforward. So that's what I'm going to do. No guesswork. Okay. So now that we've got your center wheel in, we're going to actually just flip the movement right over and build out everything else that goes on the other side. Sometimes it's these movements are pretty modular, and so they come sort of in sections, and so the modularity helps me ensure that things are working properly and I don't have to dig too deep. The problem with the chronographs is that there's so many levels and layers that you have to be sure before you dive too deep into one, into the process. You have to be really sure that everything is perfect, or you're going to be tearing apart a ton of parts to make sure that you have everything the way you want it. So let's let's begin. Okay, so now we're on the calendar side, but the calendar side is above this. This gets a plate mounted on top. And so what we have to do now is build out these parts by, of course, doing lubrication. So we got to lubricate everything. We're going to build your keyless works, your, well, just a whole bunch of stuff. We'll get there. So lubricate all these parts. Properly lubricate. All right. Make sure everybody's the way they should be. Lots of little pivots and parts, pieces. Okay, so I'm going to start with your keyless works. So that's first on the list. Okay. One of the first things we need to do is get your crown and stem ready to go. So what I do is I sort of hang this here like that, and then I can put in your winding pinion without too much trouble. That needs to be properly lubricated as well. Okay. Right now, the gears here need to be lubricated. So that gets a different type of lubrication. So that just slides right on. Now they're mated, and now we go boop, and in it goes. All right. So. Okay. Lots of little lubrication steps here that need to get done. So this is not necessarily boring, but probably not the most entertaining television. Certainly more entertaining than the current Marvel series, which I'm terribly unimpressed with. It's like this buddy flick that just whew, it's awful. Just awful. Can't believe they did a boat reconstruction montage with music. What a nightmare. I don't know if they're trying to be ironic or not, but it was terrible. Anyway, I'm not a TV critic, I'm just a fan of certain Marvel concepts, and that one is not doing it for me. Okay, so what do we got here? All right, let's get all of these these parts doing their thing. Okay. Okay, so that's good. All right, now you need your spring. And a bit of pegwood. Help us. Yep. All right. Next up. Okay. Okay. All right, Chris, so now everything's installed. We're ready to go. We have to now put the plate on. So the next step is putting the plate that holds everybody in place. So this wheel has to be straight as possible, and then we can properly align everybody so we're not knocking it out. That is pretty close. So let's see what's keeping us. Anything? Seems all right. Something's not quite flat. I gotta find out what that is. Usually something very minor. That looks all right. That looks good. How about our reset? That also looks good. All right, let's drop a screw and see how we do. Okay, so everybody's looking good. Everybody's flush and in contact and in place. What's nice about this is that once we get the wheels built out and all the gears in and everything ready to go, it's a very limited number of things to do to get the watch back together, because we built out all of the sort of complicated bits already. All right. So that's good. It's doing what it's supposed to do. That is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. And those parts are going around like they should. So everybody looks good. Right. Okay. So now we can flip. Okay. So now let's get this oriented the way I want. Okay. Okay. Let's go ahead and lubricate your arbor jewel. Right. Don't want to forget this intermediary wheel here. Without this, you can't wind the watch. That's got to go on. All right, let's check all your pivots and all of your wheels. Make sure there's no fuzz or unwanted material. There we go. That looks good. Okay, now for a very important piece of the puzzle. Okay. Oh my. Let's get this taken care of. Okay. And now for the very important, critical in fact, fourth wheel, chronograph wheel. That goes here. That looks good. Very nice indeed. Okay, so that's your train. Okay, so here's your partial train bridge. I say partial because it doesn't actually have a jewel for, or a bushing for your fourth wheel or your chronograph wheel, because that's held in another bridge that sits above this. So it's partial in the sense that it holds everything for the third and escape wheel and your barrel, but not for your fourth wheel, chronograph wheel. Make sure everybody's aligned. Sometimes it takes a little work here to get everybody in place. Once you do, you know it, and that's it. Okay. That's good. Oh yeah. All right, so that's good. Let's go ahead and get that taken care of. After this, we've got to lubricate everybody. So we will do that. That's good. Very nice. All right, let's go ahead and tighten everybody down. Okay. All right, so now the fun stuff. Now we get to put all your chronograph components in. So we've got this and this. Let's go ahead and put your plate in place. So the A or the B movements have this interesting, oops, piece of fuzz. You don't need to be there. Have these plates that act as a bushing for the intermediary wheel on the B movements. On the A movements, that wheel is fixed and that plate doesn't exist. So that was continued on to the 6138s, which share a lot of the similar kinds of structure and component placement as the A's, or as the 6139s. All right, now the fun begins. Let's go ahead and put your click spring. Oh, come on. Come on. There we go. There we go. All right, let's get your ratchet wheel in place. Here we go. So much noise in here. Dogs and cleaning and kids and everything. Okay. Right. Good, good, good. All right, next, levers. All right, there's one. And there's two. Right. Alright, that's lubricated as it should be. So let's go ahead and put this screw in place. Good. Alright, so next is your column wheel. Just give some lubrication here to where your bushing sits. And there it is. There's your bushing, and there is your wheel. Make sure everybody's in the right spot. That's good. Right. Move the spring a little bit, and down it should go. There it is. Its screw. Okay, good. Just check where we are. That's where I want to be. All right, let's go ahead and lubricate everybody around here. So we've got this lever, which operates your hammer. That needs some lubrication. This lever, which is your interlock, stops your reset button from being pressed while you're operating your chronograph. That needs a little bit. This also needs to be lubricated, which is the area underneath of your on-off lever. All right, now we can apply your spring. So this spring is pretty critical. Well, I mean, all of them are important, but the strength of the spring matters a bit here. Make sure it's proper and doing its job, because it keeps this arm, which also has to operate the arm on the other side, away from your chronograph wheel. And that's important. Let's go ahead and install your hammer. And its spring. Oops, come on now. All right, there we go. Let's get that extra bit of grease taken care of. Right now, we need your chronograph wheel, your minute recording wheel here. That drops in here. It actually has a jewel. On 6139s, it's not jeweled. But for some reason on 6138s, it's got its own jewel. Okay, intermediary wheel. You go like so. It's a bit of a balancing act. Come on. There we go. It has to pre-align with that. And with that, that is all of the parts that go into making your function of your chronograph. Now, this needs to go in place. So the chronograph bridge, which has the jewel, of course, for your Okay, so Chris, we were just talking about modularity, funny enough, with the construction of these movements. Luckily, the components that make up the modularity are in themselves modular. Well, that's a good thing when you consider that This spring, which is the reset function for your hammer, which resets your chronograph, yours was badly bent. I mean, bent to the point where it would be so tight that the actual operation of the chronograph on off or reset would have been quite bad. And you can, it's actually in the manual, you can bend this piece. Well, I tried to put yours into a slightly less intense position, and snap, it went. So luckily you can unstake this, and I have a scrap one off of a movement, and it goes right on. And so there you go. So now we're ready. A little bit of that'll come back to you. That's the way it goes sometimes. Sometimes you gotta do a little bit of extra. Get everybody aligned here. Let's get a good looking over before we get too far. Right, and a little bit of lubrication. There we go. All right, very nice. Okay, so now we lubricate your top jewel and your just a little bit here on your recording wheel. All right, a couple more screws, and then we can check. And we have to flip over and lubricate your other side. Good. Now let's go ahead and do that now. Okay, so these two jewels here for your escape wheel and your third wheel. Okay, and that's it. That's all we have to do. All right, next is your let's check our work a little bit here. Let's give a little bit of power. Let's take your chronograph wheel out for a second. All right. That looks quite good. Okay. Let's try that one more time. Let's see how we did. All right, looks good. Everybody's well aligned. Everybody's disengaging as they should. Very good. Okay, great. All right, so next up is Pallet Fork. So we're going to lubricate that. Let's go ahead and get there. For your Pallet Fork. The pivots on this get no lubrication, which is sometimes a little hard to believe, but it ends up being more like a braking fluid than the viscosity of the lubricants are enough to slow this down. So Seiko does not recommend lubrication on the jewel. just a dry fit. Good. That's what you want to see. Very easy movement. Let's get your brand new mainspring wound. Next is your balance. Everything looks happy. So we're going to drop your balance and then put your die shock in place and be ready to roll. Now, come on. Find the spot. Come on. There we go. Okay. It's going to be a little bit low energy for a moment until we get everything in place, but it's definitely in the right spot. One screw. Two screws. Getting better. All right, next step is your, of course, your die shock. Okay, there we go. We are running. Looks pretty good. All right, Chris. Well, I'm waiting for your hands to dry. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just finish up with this side of your movement. Things are looking really good, so it's time to get the rest back together. And luckily that doesn't involve too much at this point because we have done the hard work of getting everything built out for the parts and pieces under this plate. So essentially it's just putting your calendar together, and that involves a little bit of lubrication. So we'll do that. Yeah, it's not a whole lot. Just a couple spots that need a few pieces of lubricant, a few bits. We'll get you going. Okay. Comes your Millennium Falcon. Okay. Now get your date wheel installed. Oops. Come on. There we go. Okay. Lubricate your finger here. There we go. All right, now your plates go back. All right, 3 screws here. Great. Now, your day wheel. Okay. And there we go. Looks good. That's it. All right, next stop is dial in hands, and then we'll be done. Okay, Chris, we have reached the final moment of putting your 6138 8020 back together. So we've got a couple little things to do here to finish up, and then we get to see how we did. Okay, so your movement has been put back together. It's back in the case. Your hands and dial are back on. So now it's just a matter of doing the last couple stages. That includes putting your winding assembly back together, which involves a little bit of lubrication and a couple screws. So let's get that taken care of. Here's your reduction wheel. Looks good. Doing its job. Okay. All right. And the last screw. Now your case back with your new case back gasket. And with that, we are done. All right, let's take a close look at what we've got. We talked about your Panda. You had expressed some concerns about your dial and your hands and things and your crystal. I think, you know, honestly, this is a really great looking watch. It's got its wabi-sabi. You know, it certainly has the marks of age, but honestly, I think it came out really well. We redid your minute and hour hand as you requested. Your sweep hand, your hour recording hand, and your minute recording hand are all original. Those haven't changed, and so they look pretty good. I think, you know, given what we started with, I think we've ended really well. I cleaned your dial as best I could without doing any more additional removal of the surface. Basically just sort of preserving it. Everything's functioning exactly as it should. We've got good movement of the hands. Go through here and look at all the day and date turnovers. So there's your day, date first, and then of course your day turns over. We also have your quick set. Here. It works just fine. Okay, your chronograph, of course, resets exactly as it should. It's a softer reset. We had put a new spring on there, and that spring, of course, I adjusted it so that the reset takes a bit of a push. Once you do that, it's absolutely fine. And you don't want it to be a hard reset because it ends up destroying the chronograph wheel. These were very weak, and so you see a lot of them fail. And so if we go, for example, to here, give it a reset, it just has that nice soft return back to 0. And that's the way I think these all should be. I always encourage people to reset somewhere between 11 and 1. It's easier on the wheel. But if you do reset it from a lower position, it's going to sort of save itself by not resetting too hard. So we can do that example. So you just have to push and hold, and it will eventually bring the hammer around. So I think that's the right way for these things to go. Anyway, case back came out really nice. I didn't do anything other than just clean your case. Your lines are very original. Everything looks good. No polishing, of course, just a light cleaning. You have a new crystal again that came out really nice. I think that just sets off the watch in a great way. All right, well, Chris, I am happy to report that watch 1 is done, and we're going to start on your second. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, Chris, I keep doing this. Here are your final numbers. Your Panda is running phenomenally well. This is really exactly how you want to see one of these running. So I would say this is really clean and exactly the kind of signal you want to see. So this one, I'm going to call it ready to go. All right, thanks, Chris.